Hello and welcome to this week's live masterclass. I'm super excited to be teaching this masterclass because this is something that a lot of us get tripped up on. It is a topic that we think we're doing things wrong, or something is going wrong, or I need to be changing like my whole business because something isn't working. And really what it comes down to is scheduling the right task at the right time. Most of the time when we are doing a task and we feel like it just doesn't work, like you cannot even put yourself to doing the task and you're like all over the place and it just doesn't work out. Most of the time, that is because you're doing the right task at the wrong time. And there's no complicated, difficult way of putting your efforts in it. It's not something that you have to change your whole schedule around. It's just starting to schedule smarter. And this all comes back to our cyclical nature. We are taught that time is linear. We have 24 hours in a day and that's it. That's all we have, which is definitely true. But there's another side to it, which is that time is relative. Now, I'm not the first person who says that. There are many people before me who knew that time is relative. Like Einstein, I mean, it's not just nobody, right? He knew that time is a concept that is interpreted differently by people. Now, of course, it's good that we have linear time so that we know that when I start this live at 2 o'clock Central European time, that I'm actually showing up at 2 o'clock, that you know that it's 2 o'clock or that it's 8 a.m. in Eastern Central time. That is very convenient that we have that and that we have that to come back to. But when it comes to scheduling our time, there is more than just thinking of time as something linear. If you start looking at it from a relative perspective, so let's say you're waiting on the train and the train is late by 5 minutes. That is a very annoying, very stressful 5 minutes, and it feels like forever. Whereas if you spend 5 minutes with a loved one, it can feel like time goes by so quickly. It's like, this was just 5 minutes. And it's all because we experience time on a different level. And if we can start to realize that we relate to time in a different way, they can also start to schedule things in a different way. And one of the things that is so important when you're scheduling things is, here we go again, looking at your cycle and looking at the moon cycle. The reason why I keep coming back and back and back to this is because so much of our experience is tied to our cycle. So when we think about planning things, when we think about doing things a certain way, it is usually very masculine driven. It is setting up systems and boundaries that would work for men, but that wouldn't work for us women because, like I said, we experience time on a different level. Men go through a hormonal cycle every 24 hours, whereas we as women, we have a cycle that is 28 days. So men can experience the day very similar, whereas we experience it completely different. We go through these waves that last for days, not just a few hours. So if we are trying to put so much effort on being the same and producing the same every single day, it's simply impossible. And this is because of our relationship to time. The way that we perceive it is very different than men perceive it. Because mostly they feel energetic at the same moment of the day, whereas women, We can have like a burst of energy one week, and the other week we're like, nope, I don't want to meet anybody. I just want to be in my little cocoon, and I don't really want to put myself out there. And this is because of your cycle. And your cycle has roughly 4 phases. We have the menstrual cycle, we have the follicular cycle of the phase, we have the ovulation phase, and the luteal phase. These are all very similar to the 4 phases of the moon, to the 4 seasons that we have. Not saying that these all sync up, but they have a very different type of energy. And the more you start to understand these 4 different phases, the easier it will be to schedule the right task at the right time, instead of scheduling the right task at the wrong time. So if we start with our menstrual phase, now we all know that's a phase where we're supposed to be resting. But in our 24/7 economy, it's like you have to show up the same every single day. That is impossible. Our bodies are literally screaming to take a rest, to slow down, to not put yourself out there that much. And I know if you have a business, it is difficult to just say for a whole week, like, okay, I get it. Like this week, I'm just not going to do anything because I'm in my menstrual phase. The thing you can start doing is start putting the task that really coordinate with that phase in that phase. So for your menstrual cycle, it's much more about using your intuition. It is about really going through different type of layers, researching, trying to see what works and what doesn't. This is very similar to the winter season. So if you think about the winter, think about that's a time for resting, for hibernating, for looking over projects. It's really a time to go within. You want to just close the doors, shut the curtains, and light a candle. That is exactly the type of feeling and the type of tasks that would work really well in your menstrual phase. So it is more about evaluation. It's more about looking at what you did, using your intuition to feel if there are any new projects, new ideas, or things starting to shape, but not act upon them yet. Because your body really needs the rest. Your body really needs to recover. I mean, think about it. I mean, you're losing a lot of blood. So obviously, you're not in the best physical shape if we look at the way that we should be. But this is really beautiful way of nature saying, okay, slow down. We're just going to stop. We're going to tune into our intuition. And the only way to listen to our intuition is to become quiet. And that is not something that is celebrated. That is not something that we are encouraged to do. And even if you still work for a boss, try to shift the way that you schedule your tasks so that most of your tasks feel like they're in alignment with the phase that you're in. The next phase is your follicular phase. This is the week after your menstrual phase. And this is a time where you can start to feel the energy is rising. You start to feel more ideas are bubbling up, and you really feel inspired to act upon them. This is a beautiful time to really move the needle forward, to start doing the things. It's also really good for planning. So if you are a little bit resentive of planning, this is a perfect time to put your plans in, to really look at what your schedule is like for the month ahead or for the quarter ahead. It's really a good time to dial into that and use that energy to really start to move the needle forward. So if you have taken your rest in your menstrual phase, and then when you go into your follicular phase, you have the ideas that were starting to form in that phase, you can actually start to act upon them. You can really start to try new things, to initiate things. It's really moving the things forward and really starting to allow yourself to go into the creative energy. Because the more you go towards the next phase, ovulation phase, the more your creativity starts to bubble, the more that you feel you can put your creative energy, and things will flow so much easier if you surrender to that. But also you need to be able to make space for the creativity to be there, space for that creativity to be able to come up. Because if you're just blocking it and you're busy with other tasks and you're trying to be creative later in your period, you feel less creative. You feel like something is blocking you. But if you turn that around and implement your creative phases within your follicular phase, things will start to go and flow so much easier. It's also really good time to really create a way, a plan to stick to, so that you respect your phases. Now I'm still explaining all the phases, but if you go back and if you know what you can do when, using this time to plan and make sure you schedule every task in the right time, follicular phase is perfect for that. Then we move on to your ovulation phase. And your ovulation phase is very similar to summertime, the type of energy. It's more outgoing. It's when you want to show yourself. It's when you're almost electric, where people are just drawn to you just by your presence. It's a time where communication-wise, you're very strong. Because not only can you communicate what you desire and what you think, it's also a beautiful time to listen to people. So it's a very beautiful two-way street where you can listen and you can communicate very well. It's a beautiful time to record videos, be visible, go to networking events, because people are naturally drawn to you. And this makes a lot of sense because in your body basically just wants to reproduce. So it is really drawing the energy towards you without you having to work for it. And this is something that a lot of women, they have to shift in, that where we believe the masculine way of being and of doing is really just to put yourself out there all the time and just go after the things that you want. This is a beautiful phase to actually sit back and let things come to you, which can be challenging, but it's a beautiful time to just let things be and let things come to you instead of you pursuing every single thing that you see. It's a really beautiful time to really use that energy that you have, because this really is the peak of your cycle. This is where your physical energy peaks, your creativity peaks. So it just lasts for 3 to 4 days. That's like you could say downside, but if we are on that high energy that long, we burn ourselves out. So it's good there's like this burst of energy. And when you know it's coming, you can actually schedule your task perfectly around that burst of energy, around that really exciting energy, so that when the other phases come around, you can actually start to use what you have created and then put it into the world. The next phase, so we had the ovulation, which is the peak, and then after the ovulation, you have your luteal phase. Now this phase lasts the longest. So your menstrual phase is about 5 to 7 days. Your follicular phase is about 7 to 8 days. Your ovulation, 3 to 4, and then your luteal is 10 to 14 days. And this might sound like the least exciting phase, because this is when you can wrap up your projects. This is where you can analyze what went well and what didn't, and you're slowly turning inwards again. So instead of this outward ovulation type of energy, this is more of a fall energy. So the leaves are starting to fall, you're starting to shed certain things, you start to prune through your projects, what works, what doesn't. and then you come to the core and you're really focused. Like, this is the time if you need to finish a project, if you need to finish writing blogs, publishing the blogs, or publishing your content, this is the perfect time because you have a very good focus on what needs to get done. You really have an attention for detail. So it's really more effortlessly, like if you need to do your bookkeeping, perfect time to do so. I mean, most of us don't really like bookkeeping, but if you put it in your luteal phase, it is beautiful because you have the focused energy to see all the different numbers, to go through what works and what doesn't. And it's really good for you to tune into that and to really make sure that nothing is overlooked. And this then goes back into your menstrual phase. And because your luteal phase lasts that long, you can start to batch and do a lot of things in your house to prepare yourself so that when your menstrual phase is there, you can rest more. And it's a very genius way of nature to create us this way so that when our menstrual phase rolls around, we have that phase of really wrapping things up, of detail oriented. So our house, our business, everything is clean and set up so that we can rest. But what I said at the beginning, society is not set up like that. We're supposed to show up the same every single day, but it doesn't work like that. So the more that you surrender to this, the more that you understand in what phase you are, what you're going through, and how you can use that energy, the easier then it becomes to do your tasks. So it's not like you've been doing the wrong tasks. It's not like you're not good at something, but it's really trying to get back into what works with what phase. Now, the best thing you can start doing is to track your cycle to see what is going on. Now, if you don't have a cycle, if you're pregnant like me, or if you're on hormonal birth control, then you don't have a cycle, then you can follow the moon. So similar energies to your menstrual cycle is the new moon. Similar to your follicular phase is the waxing moon. Then ovulation is the full moon. And luteal phase is the waning moon. That is very, very similar to those energies. So if you don't have a cycle, you can always follow the moon. And that gives the same type of energy. So if there are any questions, please feel free to ask me now, or if you're watching the replay, you can leave them in the comments and I will get back to them. And let me just take a sip of tea and see if there are any questions coming up. And if there are no questions, then I am going to say goodbye to you, and I will see you again next week with another masterclass, and I will announce what the topic will be tomorrow, and I can't wait to see you again. And if you have any questions, if there is anything that comes up and you want to know, you can always tell me and comment below. If you haven't already, you can sign up for my newsletter where you get weekly inspiration and you get the free lunar magic forecast, which is a video plus accompanying PDF file where you can see what's happening with the energies in the sky. So when you're planning your month ahead, you actually look at what new moon is doing, what the full moon is doing, if there's a Mercury retrograde, which by the way happens next week. And then you can learn how to use all those energies in your benefit and even become more productive, more efficient, and have more time for the things that really matter to you. And I'll put a link in the comments how to sign up for that. So I am going to wish you a fantastic day. I hope the weather is better where you are, because here the weather is really not good. And I am going to speak to you again next week. Bye-bye.